right, so now for our panel on how game developers, streamers, and podcasters can work together. I'm Andrew Greenberg. I've not introduced myself the whole time I've been running my mouth. I'm the executive director of the Georgia Game Developer Association, and I make games. To my left is...
I'm Stephon Hardaway, or Phon. You just call me that. I do live streaming, but before all that, I started the eSports department in SCAD, Savannah. Soon after that, Hi-Rez picked me up. I was a commentator for Momocon. I've done Paladins work as well. I've commentated that before. I had a little bit over half a year at Hi-Rez officially, and now I'm pretty much chilling out and doing production work for Hi-Rez. So, that's all it is. Pretty much I do. I live stream. I live stream pretty often, but not as much as I would be because of like the job and such. But that's pretty much me. So, pass it over to him.
Hi, my name is Bobby Blackwolf. I have been a video game podcaster for almost 15 years. So if you do the math, that was right around when iTunes added podcasts. There were about 50 of us. Now there's 50,000, and I don't quit. So I started doing it actually as a live stream back in 2005, but it was on internet radio. If anybody remembers the old Shoutcast protocol, not shoutcasting, but the Shoutcast protocol. So I was, yeah, it was an MP3 thing. Anyway, I was doing that, so I was doing it live every Sunday night at 8 o'clock for an hour. And we moved to Twitch to being a video show in December of 2018, and I still do it. And this past Sunday night, I just did my 700th weekly episode. Yay! Been around for a little while.
Well, I haven't been around that long. Yeah. So my name's Aamir. They call me Bang Bang Boomerang. I'm also a content creator. We've been creating content for 5 years. But our passion is more so supporting other creators in the space. We've been, pretty much doing like live events, hosting, producing shows, and whatnot, just to help us up-and-coming creators. We do a table read where a lot of amateur, voice actors will come in and read some scripts, and we also host some gaming events as well to kind of get like future esports gamers just comfortable with playing video games. So we deal with the amateurs. So if you're interested in trying to get into the space and you're looking to get your feet wet, we're the group to talk to. So that's it for me.
Hi, I'm Matt Franklin. My wife and I are a team called Most Uniquest, sort of a quasi entity. We are on all the social media platforms, YouTube, Twitch, blah, blah, blah. We are content creators, but primarily that's just so I can practice. I am a tech monkey. I love to work with cameras. I am suffering some serious camera envy tonight. For those of you on the internet and can't tell, we're on a red epic tonight. I have no idea how we landed that. But what I do is I work with people who want to do a show but don't know how to do a show. And I do not mean playing video games, excuse me, which there's nothing wrong with that. But what I focus on are podcasts, talk shows, tabletop role-playing games, which is why I'm specifically on the panel, and conferences like Siege. A few years ago, I was the guy running around helping make sure that Siege was live and videotaped and everything.
And much appreciated.
You're welcome.
So let's start talking specifics. Let's talk about your specific experience either working with games on your streams or podcasts, or working with game developers. Matt, let's start with you, since you already brought up the subject that you broadcast, you live stream tabletop role-playing games. Can you talk about some of the technical craziness of that? It's not, you can't just jack your game in and stream it out over a mixer.
Yeah, when you're doing video games, it's fairly easy. You plug in your game streaming computer, you maybe have a webcam and everything is right there for you, whatever. When you're doing live, okay, well, how many players are at the table? How many cameras do you have? How many mics do you have? What kind of mics do you have? These are questions most people don't want to answer, which is why I've invested way more money than I'd like to admit on microphones and cameras and things. Show of hands, who finds OBS, if you know what that is, intimidating? Right. Pro tip, you're wrong. It's excellent. It's totally worth your time to get to know how to work OBS. He's right. There's no limit to the number of USB cameras you can put in OBS, and for tabletop gaming, that is a godsend. HDMI cameras look great, but they're a lot more difficult to work with. And when you're doing tabletop, maybe you want to show what's on the table. If you have maps, if you want to show their dice, their card Wow, I'm not a
Character
gamer.
sheets.
Character sheets. Thank you.
You only played D&D for about 20 years. So.
Yeah. You're definitely going to want to show their faces. I recently helped start a show. I'm no longer with the project, but we had a show of 5 players, and what we ended up doing was we had a kind of a semicircle table, and I was using HDMI cameras because I know how to do it. But we had 2 different shots, and we were making a whole bunch of different cameras just out of those shots. So the challenge was, okay, everybody sit where you're going to sit. I have to line you up perfectly. Then we had overlays, so I helped people develop their overlays, make it look real pretty.
Explain what overlays are.
So overlays, any kind of graphic, it's a catch-all term, in that specific context rather. The Dungeon Master had an illustrator friend who made a world map of his game that he'd written. So we took that, and I took some free clip art of a little frame and ran it through Photoshop and made a little hole in JPEG, and that's where your face would show up. So your face would be next to the world map, and then repeat that 5 times for every single player. It's a lot more work than a lot of people want to put in, and that's what I do. So.
All right, Aamir, you want to talk a little about how specifically you work with content creators, and especially want to work with game developers?
Yeah, same for us. We started 5 years ago with like no idea what a podcast was. So I think originally we had like maybe 4 members, but that kind of grew into like 14 when people started getting excited about what a podcast was. And what we realized that we had no idea on how to run a podcast, you know. So that led into like, you know, we had great talent, but we didn't really know how to really focus it. So, you know, we had really raw talent, but we never put anything out. But in the process, we did learn about production. I know cameras, I know videos, I do streaming as well. I know audio, you know, by trade, I'm an electrical engineer, and I also see how those things relate together. So, you know, I'm a big pusher as far as like picking up an actual skill. And I also believe that a lot of these content creators come into the space thinking that as soon as you walk in, it's just going to be dollar signs. That is not the case. That is not the case. Our podcast, we did it for 2 years. Every Friday we'll meet up. Eventually we got burnt out. We took a break on the podcast. I didn't. I linked up with another podcast called the Report Card Podcast. They started off with 200 subscribers. Now they're at 50,000 subscribers. They have patrons. They get paid. I'm part of that. And be able to be behind the scenes and see how you can start from nothing and build into something is very, very important. Not only that, they've also been able to dive deeper into their craft, where people go to them and let them know about what they got going on. And to me, that kind of opened up my mind to say more content creators need to have that type of support from actual creators who are in the space and understand what it takes to be successful. So.
Excellent. So, Bobby, you've had a number of game devs on your channel over the years, and you've had some interesting interviews with celebrities at conventions and the like. Can you give us some anecdotes that speak to exactly how a podcaster can best work with these people, or sometimes not?
So,
or what to avoid is maybe a way to phrase it.
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough to have been. I started my podcast back when influencer was not a term. So I was technically press. So I was in with the press site. So I had PR representatives that I was working through, and I got to talk to game developers that way. The worst interviews I have had to do were with game developers that give like 1-word answers to everything. So be sure you have your narrative of what you want to talk about when you're doing an interview for something like a podcast or radio or television, even if somebody's got a camera in front of you. And also be enthusiastic about it, because I've had a couple times, because I'll go to conventions like a Momocon or something like that, and if I don't talk to them until the end of the day, you can really tell. So it's hard to keep it up like that. But like my audience, when they do see you, that's the first thing they see, and if they see you're tired, you're kind of, yeah, my game, it's this, and blah, 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 like that feeds into them. So as hard as it is, you need to have your narrative, and you need to be enthusiastic about it no matter how long you've been on your feet. But I've been able to work with a lot of big time developers and a lot of the smaller developers that are here. Nowadays, I work mostly with the like smaller indie developers because now that influencers exist, they don't talk to me anymore. So I don't have any PR contacts anymore, and that's fine. I don't need the AAA people. But I did get to like interview Peter Molyneux back when Fable 3 came out, and so that was a fun interview. But I have more fun interviewing people like y'all.
Excellent. Yay. All right, Phon, you've worked on some of the most professional streams in the world. And you've gotten to see some of the best putting together really good content. What in your mind makes for a good game stream, and what is something you bring to that process?
What do I bring? Oh gosh, the biggest complaint I ever got when I was commentating still was, "Can this guy please stop yelling?" That's probably like the biggest thing it was.
But it's called shoutcasting.
Right. Right. I mean, that's what it is. What it is. But it's always the energy. I mean, whenever it comes to a certain game, like especially since I've commentated a lot, even if it wasn't at the biggest level. I mean, I've done Paladins before. I've done League of Legends for a collegiate league and Overwatch and things like that. And it's always the energy. There's always a nice sort of flow to the game, and typically how it works. I also was a game dev at a very, very brief point. Before Season 3 of Paladins came out, if you guys are playing Paladins or if you guys are looking at it, I worked on that. I did a lot of the play testing, and a lot of the default builds that are in the game, me and my co-caster actually put together because we figured what was optimal. So at no point in my life did I think I would be able to work on a game like that, but I did, and it was super, super awesome. But typically what it is that people like to look for is, and it's going to sound very general, it has to be really like fun. It has to be interesting to look at, and most of my expertise comes from multiplayer games and competitive based games, even though I myself love all games, no matter what it is that they are. It comes from a lot of, like, I'm going to use an example on Paladins. What drew people to Paladins so much was at base level, everybody was like, this is just discount Overwatch. I don't know why anybody's like playing this. I don't understand. But at a more in-depth level, it was the act of how the payloads move. And there were small nuances that you couldn't see from the outside looking in. It was just, this is just Overwatch. But when you started playing it, you realized that the payload timer was different. Being able to actually contest that range was very, very different. Fighting on point was different. You could reset overtime timer all the time, just like you can in Overwatch. However, in Paladins, the death timers can typically be a little bit longer. People are more aggressive. Only one person needs to be on the payload in order to actually push the payload. Doesn't matter how many people you have on it. So in competitive play, at high level, here's the nuance, is that people will kill people around the point, and then the rest of them will bum rush their spawn and pretty much try and keep them held back there, while one person, typically the healer, is typically on point. You wouldn't understand that if you hadn't watched the difference between Overwatch and Paladins, right? At base level, that's what it seems like, but you have to be able to do that research and really commit that time to be able to find those nuances and really make something that can be great. Same thing for Smart.
So I love that, the informed caster, the informed team behind it. So, Phon, you bring a unique perspective in that you are both game dev and streamer, and that's a rare combination. I wish more game devs streamed. I wish more streamers had the game dev experience. When you're watching other people's streams and they're talking about games, what is it that you most often see them missing? Are they missing those nuances that you're talking about? Are they missing the understanding of what goes into making games? I certainly hear game devs often see a review on a stream and say they don't understand what went into this at all.
So are you speaking from like the perspective of like, okay, well, when I'm watching streams for game devs, you mean the people that are making the game or the people that are playing it?
The people doing the streaming.
Okay, the people doing, okay. So typically the people that are doing the streaming. Okay, so you mean from a production standpoint?
Yeah.
Okay. Things
but actually, any of those would have been a good, better question.
Oh,
so feel free to jump on any of those.
So
if you have questions in chat, feel free to send them along too.
So the thing is that typically from really just the person it is that I'll hit all of them very quickly. The person it is that is typically streaming it. Always try and stay talking, even if you seem like an idiot doing it, even if it doesn't seem like anybody's really watching. Somebody at some point, because it's happened to me, even with the platform it is that I have, that I've been blessed to be able to have, right? People will always listen. If you sound like you're passionate, if you enjoy the game it is that you're doing, especially that, you have to be able to really show that energy and show that love. Always keep talking about it. Make sure that you really, really love the game it is that you're playing. From a game dev side, take breaks. don't do any. I went to SCAD, man. I went to SCAD for 4 years and I graduated. I understand all nighters are not a thing you should do. Do not stay up all night. Don't keep working on it. You guys can take breaks. You're allowed to do that even if you have a deadline. You should do that because a lot of the game devs it is that I've seen, even in Paladins, it's been super. It's super relaxed because everyone's like, okay, well, we understand it's a 9 to 5 job, but we also love what we do every day, right? So we'll take breaks. During the playtesting for season 3, we would do it in rounds. Okay, here's this team it is that would do this. Here's this team that would do this. Test these things out. What will happen after we were done with round 1 of playtesting? Okay, let's take a break. Let's talk. Let's do whatever the case is, right? You have to keep morale high when you're doing it because if you don't, you will burn yourself out so quickly. You will burn it out so quickly because I've been on that receiving end too. From the perspective of streaming in a production standpoint, you don't have to have the fanciest camera. You don't really have to have the nicest camera or anything like that. You just have to be able to have an understanding of production flow mainly. Like typically what it is that you have to do or what it is that I've noticed that we've done in the back whenever we're doing Paladins or Smite. It's on a bigger scheme, so that's pretty much what it is I can speak from. Typically we have these different cameras. Everyone is communicating. If you're working with a production team, communication is key. It is super important. I cannot count the amount of times where either I've been on camera or I've been behind the camera that either I've messed up or people in the back have messed up, and that was because I would hear it through my headset and they would be like, oh, sorry, we didn't really say that, or we forgot to say that, et cetera, et cetera. People can make mistakes, and that's completely fine to be able to do that. It's just communication, especially on a production team. You all have to work together to make the show. You all have to work together to make the show work, and that's what's really, really important. Communication, and also don't be a douchebag. That goes without saying, but yeah.
Don't be. Oh yes, question.
So how much of your content is scripted, and how much is it just?
You mean from like Hi-Rez's standpoint? Or just any of it?
Shows that you do.
Absolutely none. There are so many clips of me or my co-caster making ourselves look stupid, and that wasn't scripted. It was just something that would happen. It's in the moment. We don't write a single script for anything it is that we do, especially for shoutcasters or commentators. There's no script. It's typically what it is that we see on screen, and you let your knowledge or your energy pretty much carry you from that point on. For Paladins, I came into Paladins playing the game, but not to the level of like some of my co-casters, right? So I had to do a lot of studying for 3 straight months. It was all I did. When I woke up, I played Paladins if I wasn't at work. When I got home, I played Paladins. I did XYZ to make sure that that was what it was that could make it interesting. And the flow sort of comes naturally, especially when it is that you love or you like what it is that you do. It'll typically move its way from point A to point B. And to answer your question mainly, none of it's scripted, and that's because we all have a passion for what it is that we do. We don't have to write a script because we all love it.
Is that true for all of you?
A little bit.
Well, I mean, my field's a little bit different than some of theirs, so I mean, like, I understand,
I will say, so a couple of years ago, I worked at backstage at the Hi-Rez Expos a couple of years ago, and I know for a fact that what you're saying is all perfectly true, but there is a thing called rehearsal.
Oh, correct. Yes.
There are skills
correct,
that you
correct,
can like off-screen practice. Like I know one thing you guys do is throws.
Yep, all the
Blah
time.
blah blah blah. Over to you.
Yep.
You got to pick that up real quick. So there are things that you can do. Like okay, if you're a podcaster, you probably have notes. You're not going to have your entire script like on a teleprompt, unless you have a lot of money and OCD.
Right.
But you'll kind of know in the back of your head what you're going to talk about. One show that I do, haven't in a while, but that my wife and I do is just current events, news, politics, whatever. And we just take interesting articles throughout the week and we put them into a Word document, and then I kind of make 5 or 6 bullet points about each, and then we invite callers to call in and we just rap. That's the format of our show. And the challenge for me is, okay, I got to keep this ball rolling. We have, like you said, always be talking.
Exactly.
Don't always be talking as fast as you can, but always fill that space. So if you're got a caller or if you have someone else on the panel and they kind of start fumbling and they don't know what to say, pick it up, start talking.
Bobby, you gave us this about the scripting.
Well, so my podcast, I don't have the benefit because I don't trust anybody else. I literally do everything by myself. So I do plan a little bit ahead of time. Now, it's not scripted, but I do actually have written out, like, this is my normal intro, and just so I have it written on the screen in case I need it. And then my show is scripted like an AM radio talk show, so I actually have a couple of topics that I talk about, just me, to the camera, just to the microphone before I move to camera stuff. So I do plan that out, plan out the order, because one of the overlays, one of the new terms we learned, I built, if you remember a couple of years, like they stopped doing this a couple of years ago, but remember Sports Center on ESPN, where they would have on the side like the list of headlines, and like when they would talk about the next headline, it would move up to the. I built that because I am actually a software developer in my day job, not in gaming, but I have been in the software development industry for 20 years. So I built that. So I have to plan out what all those are. And so I do plan ahead. I know what stories I'm going to be talking about. I've rehearsed in my head the type of things I want to talk about. But I involve my chat room. I take live calls as well at the end. And so my chat room is my co-host. So then it's kind of an improv thing between me and the chat room, because if they disagree, it's awesome, because then I get to berate them and they can't berate me back because I'm the one with the microphone. But so that's why I kind of say this, because I do have a plan, but I don't actually have everything scripted out. I do want to piggyback on something about if you're going to be streaming a game, which is not what I do, and it's something that you said. And there's a person that I know from the local Stream Atlanta group, and he had this great piece of advice, because a lot of times when you start streaming a game, you're just going to play a game. There's nobody in chat. And so if somebody comes in and all you're doing is, oh, dang it, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to do that. So what you want to do is you want to take something like, oh, let's say hand sanitizer, right? So we're going to take this hand sanitizer and you're going to put it right in front of you. And if you really want to, I like googly eyes. You can put googly eyes on it. And you put that googly eyes and the hand sanitizer right in front of you. And then you're going to name it chat. And so chat is going to be your best friend. And you are going to narrate to chat, because chat with the googly eyes is looking at you. They're not looking at the game. And you're going to narrate what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. And so if you're streaming a game, that's the best way to do it. You've got chat, your best friend. So you're sitting there, nobody's actually speaking in your chat, but you're like, chat, I think we're going to go do this. And chat, this is why I do that. So that's how you can get over that. And then as you're talking, then people will actually show up in chat and you can talk with
Can
them.
you use a troll doll for that? and
You
have
can use a
chat be
troll. Yes, chat can be a troll for you. Yes.
So if you talk to yourself all the time anyway, you make them great.
You're
That's
perfect.
That's perfect. That's literally perfect.
Like, question?
Yeah.
So, chat like a volleyball Wilson situation where they can see it and know you're talking to an animate object, or is it like an imaginary object just out of frame?
It could be out of frame. I mean, some people need the little physical thing, which is why I'm like, use hand sanitizer, because you should have that anyway.
It would actually be a great shtick to have it on camera with.
Yes.
Would be great.
Hearing is a
Little gimmick,
great
will be
Chat.
sales pitch for going to good
Should I
work.
go left or should I go right, chat? To right or to left? That is the question. It's always left.
I got a quick question. Who here has gone through the living hell of watching your performances?
Oh God.
Well, I have to edit my whole
Yeah,
podcast, so I
oh, no.
re-listen to my entire podcast every week.
Oh no.
You do. You're a podcaster, yeah,
Yeah.
but for the people who are just live streaming, it's real easy to think, I never have to watch this again. It doesn't matter. You need to go back and watch
Yeah.
how you're doing, because you will think, oh, I didn't know I was that awkward at that moment. And that
Or
will
every
help you
moment.
improve.
All right, Aamir, what kind of preparations do you do welcoming people to the wall?
Oh, for us, preparations. Well, first I start off by saying hi, be friendly. Outside of that, you know, I think for us, we just let people know that it's a safe place if you're a creator to come out, hang out. Welcome to the Wall is unique because we're not just purely podcasters. We pretty much do everything with production. We have people who write scripts, table reads, like I mentioned earlier. But what's so cool about us, we just kind of like do projects together. So if we got anything that, let's say, for example, I have a friend who wants to interview, I don't know, dandelions, I don't know, something random. We'll go out there, we'll reach out to our friends and see if anybody wants to come together and, you know, record somebody interviewing a dandelion, which I don't know why I thought about that, but that was kind of wild. But just for example, just so we can get some reps, what I've noticed is that if you're a creator who's just starting out, people are not going to take you seriously unless you have some kind of following or something, right? You need a piece of art that's out there, no matter if it's not perfect to you. As long as you have something that's completed, somebody can definitely can kind of see your vision from that, if that makes sense. You know.
The curse of the artist knowing when to stop.
Right. Exactly.
I think I've only been in this space for only 5 years, but within my time, I think it's really important for young guys just to go out there and do something. And what we try to do is just help other guys, encourage them to just do it. Just go out there, do it, no matter how silly or weird you think it is. Do it, put it out there, and see whatever you get back. You know, a lot of times you'll be surprised of what you get back. You know, and just because you don't get paid for it doesn't mean you're not good at it.
Right.
So
That's
I think
huge.
it's very important that like you continue to build on that, continue to work on that, and surround yourself by people who will help you push you as well, because it gets lonely sometimes. You know.
I kind of want to piggyback off that.
That was actually my next question. Now we've talked about paying for it. Let's talk about that part of it.
Okay. So that is, man, that hits so close to home. That's like that's super. Like that's super. That's a big thing. Like just because you aren't getting paid for it doesn't mean that you aren't good at something. When I started commentating, it was just me in a college arena that I had really worked for 4 years, and all those 4 years of me trying to get it to SCAD Savannah, I didn't get paid a single dime. All the people I talked to, all the people that were like, oh yeah, we can do this, and then never talked ever again about this situation. You have to work hard and you have to work at it, but when it's truly something that you love to do, you don't have to get paid a single dime. And then eventually I reaped all of the benefits later on, especially when it was during some of those hard nights. Some of those hard nights I was like, man, I don't know where this is gonna go, whatever the case may be. When you get to the point to where it was that I was at, especially when it comes to commentating or anything, I got to the department and they wanted me to be able to be a huge part of how it was built from the ground up. But I've been working 4 years for that. Nobody had even really knew me, despite how much it was I was talking to people about it. But it was the passion and the love for what it was that I did, and the love it is that I have for gaming. My passion is like through the roof for everything it is dealing with, whether it's esports or video games, whatever the case is. It is really something that is super, super important that you keep at it, even if it doesn't seem like there's a future, there is. Because I was a college student that came in, thought he wanted to do game design, and now I'm here doing stuff like this. Like, you have to keep going. You have to keep pushing. It is so important to be able to do that.
And it's really easy to be discouraged. It's like really
super
Before
easy.
we throw it down, I want to stick with Phon for one more minute, because you do work with folks who get paid for doing it.
Correct.
And get paid real living wages for doing it. What do you think there is a change at that point in how they handle it? Certainly, they seem
Absolutely.
just as passionate. Okay, so what are the differences at that stage?
It magnifies tenfold when you find out you're getting paid for something like that you love to do. People will be like, can you stay a little bit after? I'll be like, yep, no problem. I wasn't going to go anywhere. I was like about to go home and go sleep. I'm tired, right? But it really, really doesn't matter. You truly love it. Like, I was telling this to some of the people here. My first day as a commentator, coming from doing some community management at SCAD, doing some of their social media stuff, and really the organizing and helping out with that, with TESPA, if you've ever heard of that, the collegiate league for esports. My first day on, when I really, really got on camera and for a commentary for Paladins, ironically enough, it was the longest broadcast day Hi-Rez had ever had. It was 11 hours long. And it was my first time, and everybody was like, okay, well, we trained for this, we can do it, et cetera, et cetera. I get on there, and then I find out that we had several best of 5s and best of 7s, and every one of them went to the max amount of games they could. Meanwhile, the entire time, I'm tired, like drinking water. I don't know what my name is. I forgot where it was that I was at. And people are like, "Are you still good? Are you still good to go?" I'm like, "Absolutely," because I loved what it was that I did, right? And it's not just the money aspect of it, because of course that's realistic. You have to be able to get paid for what it is that you love to do. You can't just do it for free all of the time. You can work really, really hard, but I personally believe that. I personally believe that you can do it for a wage, and there's nothing wrong with finding that escape. But yeah, it just becomes tenfold when you love what it is that you do. I mean, who am I to say about like whether or not getting paid or not? Like, I did something for 4 years straight, and only the last year, a couple months before I was about to graduate, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And they're like, we're starting a department. We want you to be a part of it. I'm like, well, so it just ended up working out.
So let's throw it on down. Let's keep talking monetization. Aamir, I cut you off there.
Oh, you're fine.
Take it away.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, I think for us, I'm kind of more on the amateur side, so hearing something from you is really, really cool. I think for us, let's say on the lower level, just starting out, we don't know how to get to that next level, We just work and put stuff out there and try to build our portfolio. But yeah, how would you get into spaces like that? So I got a question for you.
Okay.
Let's say if I'm a content creator, or I love games, what can I do to break into the space?
What can you do to break into space? Okay, so from my personal perspective, my opinion, and this is perfect, I'm glad you asked me that. You just have to be able to network and really just socialize with people. Like, go to places it is that you didn't really think that is that you would end up being at. Yeah. For me, it was HRX, it was DreamHack Atlanta last year, and Hi-Rez Expo. And literally, here's what happened. Somebody came onto the carpet. It was a group of people, didn't know who they were taking a picture on the red carpet, Hi-Rez carpet. I came in and I photobombed them. Immediately after that picture, They were talking to me, and I was just having a conversation with them because I was networking. Found out they're like a bunch of CEOs and community managers for Eastern Media Gaming.
Right.
Had no idea.
Yeah.
But I went out on a limb. I mean, sure, it was a goofy thing to do, and I'm not saying photobomb every person that is.
GTA disclaimer.
That's something, man.
Right, exactly. But it is a pretty big thing. You have to just be able to step out of your comfort zone. I didn't feel comfortable. I don't really talk to strangers like that, as awkward, as weird as it is that I talk to a bunch of strangers in front of a camera, right? But you have to be able to reach outside that comfort zone. I just really just decided to go for it. I'm like, I don't know who these people are, but I'm gonna go for it. They posted the picture, and in the chat, everybody was like, "Who is that guy? Who is that guy?" And my friend's like, "Do you know who you just photobombed?" I'm like, "No."
Right.
So it's like, I mean, you just have to be able to go to a bunch of places, socialize with a lot of people. You never know who it could be.
Come to GGDA meetings.
Where's
Stuff
exactly
like that.
You never know who it could be.
And I'm a big fan of that. You know, it's more so like just really getting yourself out there and just getting that push and just grind. So,
Now, Bobby, you're part of a good network. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, but my experience is a little bit different because I am in a very fortunate position of having a day job that I love that does pay enough. So I've been doing this for 15 years and I've made zero. Now, I get paid in different ways. I get paid because I am able to put food on the table through my day job, which I enjoy, and I'm not looking to give that up. I get paid with experiences. I've went to 17 E3s. I got to meet people all over the country. I've gone to other game conventions, streamed from them, did interviews, gotten to meet people. I get to come to Siege and Andrew treats me like royalty. It's great. So that's how I take it as payment. It's not monetary payment because I luckily have another way of making monetary payment. Now, the network you're talking about, I co-founded the Voice of Geeks Network, which is a podcast network and now a Twitch network of geek podcasts. And there's another gaming podcast that's on with me on Sunday nights or right after me. That's actually the longest running video game podcast. We're pretty sure they started in 2002. We don't think anybody's beaten them. So we're kind of together. So we have a network and we're affiliates on Twitch, which means for the first time this past year, we actually made money as a network, which basically paid for the business fees and all that stuff. So we didn't actually make a profit, but that's the only time we've started making money like that. Now, I've had people ask, because I've had interventions before. You're so good at this. I'm like, oh, thank you. And they're like, no, you're so good. You should be making money at this. And I'm like, you're right. But one thing that you don't realize is that as a podcaster, if you're going to be a podcaster that makes money, do you know what you are going to be spending most of your time doing? Anybody have any kind of guess?
Networking.
Promoting.
No. Hustling. Being a salesman.
Yeah.
Selling your brand to somebody to sponsor you. You are going to become your own salesman. I fully agree with stepping out of your comfort zone. I don't want to go into that comfort zone. I don't want to be a salesman. So I'm kind of fine being where I'm at with word of mouth. There's probably more people in this room than listen to my podcast, but just a little bit on Sunday nights when I do it live. And I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. And I'm lucky to be in a position where I can be fine with that. So I'm not really pushing the monetization aspect because I personally don't need it. Other people need it more. And other people probably deserve it a little bit more than I do because I don't put as much work into it because I don't have to, and I'm not feeling obligated to.
Now, Matt, you're making money in a different way on this. You're the production side. Talk about why people should be paying a production person to help them out when they have the resources. Oh yeah, Phon wants that one. Yes.
That's a big part of that is when you have the resources because it's not cheap to hire me. It's not as expensive as like pitching a show to Hi-Rez or somebody. Sorry, signal in the
Keep
back.
going. There's a question in chat, but we'll get to it.
Okay. You have to think very carefully about what kind of show you want to do before you talk to someone like me. Now, I do have very low-level consulting things that I'll do very cheaply. Like, I won't run your show, but I'll tell you, hey, you have absolutely no equipment. Think about this, this, and this. And I'm not going to tell you what those things are because I charge for that. What I want to say, though, is from the performance side, I've been through YouTube, Mixer, Twitch, a bunch of those platforms. They all have different things you can do to become an affiliate, become a partner.
Yeah.
Loots.com,
Yeah.
rest in hell. All kinds of gimmicks. Some people make a lot of money doing that stuff. I would caution you to go for someone else's brass ring, because that's how I felt every single time I tried to make YouTube partnership. I actually had YouTube partnership, and then they changed their requirements and kicked near everyone off.
Me too.
Yeah, Mixer. I was right on the cusp, and then they raised it. So my burnout as a performer was, oh my God, I keep chasing all of these other companies' idea of what I should be doing. What the hell should I be doing? Well, there's Patreon. There's third-party services you can use. That's not an endorsement. I'm just saying there are options. Merchandising. If you know anyone who can draw and has a scanner, you can make some merchandising. Yeah, right here, we got a volunteer.
Free advertising.
You should definitely look into the merch store possibilities. Think about, how can I put out some stickers, t-shirts, whatever. Things like that.
All right, question from chat, or else I'll go ahead and keep going on the hustling.
Yeah, so Epic Steve wants to know, what advice do you guys have for a recent college graduate who's struggling to get an interview within their preferred industry?
We're all looking at you, Phon.
Yeah, I know. I can feel the eyes.
Not photobomb.
Yeah. No, yeah, I can definitely feel. I can feel the eyes.
It worked out for you, though.
So the advice for, so the question was the advice for a recent college graduate who's struggling to get her interview, right? This is gonna sound like so stereotypical, but you have to keep going. I applied to a lot of different places. None of them gave me a call back. None of them gave me an answer or anything like that. But you have to keep being able to push forward. I mean, even if you have to find a job that can just pay the bills or take you through it, you have to keep that passion, not necessarily on the side, but that's always what's in your mind. You have a goal. You need to be able to push forward and try to reach that goal. It's what happened with me, like I was saying. 4 years, my grades were good in SCAD, but 4 years for the most part of me pushing, and then I get to senior classes, and everybody's like, what can you do? I'm like, I can talk and manage things, and that's what I can do. And at that moment, I was like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is I can do. I have no idea. Not despite me going through all of this stuff, all these trials and tribulations and these steps it is I've had to make. I'm like, I don't, what else is it that I can really do?
You know, I had a similar experience at that school.
Really, yeah.
SCAD grad.
Yeah, it's a matter of, you have to really keep pushing forward, and no matter what it is, you can't give up, because I didn't, and it ended up paying off for me eventually. But it's going to take some time. Like, it's not like I'm going to sit in these interviews, my portfolio is good, it's great, that's all it is that matters, that I'm going to get a job eventually. I know, never be too arrogant. Never get big-headed. I know plenty of people that I've graduated with that do amazing art, have amazing stuff, and they don't have a job. They don't. Their concept art looks like something. Some of them have done small internships and such for Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering. Their art is amazing. Not a job, because they're like, somebody will hire me eventually. I'll get to applying, eventually, so on and so forth. I don't really have anything to worry about. And here they are, and here I am, right? Like, it's a difference in that. You can never be too arrogant. You have to keep pushing forward and really fight for what it is that you believe. That's my answer.
And can I piggyback on that a little bit?
Of course.
Because I don't work in the game industry, but I tell people I'm 29. That's a lie.
He's 22.
Yeah, exactly. But so I've been having to get different jobs, and I'm a software developer doing business application stuff, so it's still technology related. And here's the crappy truth. Many times it's not your fault. And I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to call someone out. My first job interview after I graduated college 20 years ago was with this guy over here. And it wasn't because I wasn't good enough. They just had someone just slightly better that was in the pipeline. It was the perfect decision for them. I turned out really well. So it really worked out for everybody, but it wasn't about me, because I had my foot in the door, and if that other person wasn't there, it probably would have been me, and my first job would have been with Andrew. But it was not about me. And so if you don't get a call back, it's not about you. They have 100 resumes, and they've got to figure out somehow how to get the top 5 or 10 because they don't want to have all their developers or artists or whatever go through an interview process for 100 people. The recruiter has to narrow it down. So it is a little bit of luck, and I hate to say that, but it really is. So go photobomb some people. I mean, don't photobomb. Don't photobomb.
I'll add one more thing to what Phon talked about, though, because I know from being a little bit outside of what Phon was doing that he was also creating his own brand. And at least Lewis and others talk about this, creating your own brand for employment. And even without knowing that's what it was called, you were doing that.
Right.
And it wasn't just, here's my resume. It's here is what Phon is and what he's creating.
That's why I think, like, for me personally, I'm a big believer in, like, creating something that somebody can see. Like, that's so important. And then talk about it. Go to networking events and talk about it. Create something. Look, this is what I'm working on. Show them what you got going on, and then talk about it. Create something, and then talk about it over and over again. That's what I've seen that's been successful. It was successful for me. I'm an engineer, but for my first job, I went to the websites and kind of looked to see what the job descriptions were. And I went home and created a project that met all those criteria. I mean, I would encourage somebody to do the same thing. It may not be directly related, but I think it's the same formula. You know, find out what these guys are looking for. Go in there. We have YouTube. Google what you need to do.
Right.
Create it, and then post it up on the website. Like, I have a website with my name on it. You know, put that on your resume. Do something that stands out. Just because you have a degree doesn't mean that you're smart. Just because you have the piece of paperwork doesn't mean that you're going to get a job.
Exactly.
Show people that you can do the work, and they'll give you the job because you're already doing it. Like, oh yeah, of course, come on in. That's how you stand out in the batch. I'm a big believer in that.
Show people you finished something.
Yes.
Big important.
Very
Because
big important.
the last 10% takes 90% of the time, and that's when a lot of people quit.
Yes.
When I hire at my non-gaming stuff, I don't care if you have a degree or not. I want to see if you finished something.
Exactly.
The degree shows me you finished something because you finished college.
Right.
But if you don't have that, finish something. Show me something that is complete. You can now put an app on the App Store that works. So
Yes,
that's the kind of
right.
thing I
That's
look
huge.
at.
All right, so let's talk a little about hustling. Seems like the last good topic to jump on this. How do you get what you do out to the people who will enjoy it the most? How do you
Got business
spread
cards?
Mine toss into line with the crowd.
it? Yeah, we got flyers, we got business cards. Zane, you do tabletop game. You should be talking to him anyway.
Nope, no way.
Ignore me.
All right, so
So-
besides the paperwork,
Right.
besides that old 20th century form of promotion, how do you promote yourself? How does Welcome to the Wall get the word out before people bang into the wall?
Well, before you run into the wall, you know, I think it's very important to connect with what people are doing. Right now, social media is cool. You know, I think it's really important to understand the algorithms. You know, understand how it works to get noticed and be seen. I mean, it's very simple. It's a YouTube video. You know, get involved. So Instagram, you know, Facebook. All those platforms, you have to utilize it in a specific way. You know, we use Facebook to connect with people that's in the local area. We use Instagram kind of like our billboard to let people know what's going on. We use our website to make sure we organize everything, but every place, like a folder, has a specific purpose, right? And if you're saying you're media, you're all about media, you have to show people that's what you do. So make sure it looks nice. Make sure you schedule some time and make sure you do it consistently. You know, so that's pretty much what we do to make sure it's. Oh, and another thing too, it's authentic, authentically you. You know, I truly believe that people don't buy products anymore; they buy personalities. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
An individual. I mean, we all create great things, but an individual may choose you because they like you. You know, it's just that simple. So if you can find a way to be yourself within your platform, I think individuals will appreciate that.
What else got suggestions on
So
getting the word out?
yeah, so getting the word out, we use Twitter and use Twitch's discoverability, and we go with word of mouth with some of the other podcasts. But one of the things that I find really valuable is coming to things like this. And I work a lot with DragonCon. I'm actually on the digital media track leadership, and I moderate panels over there at DragonCon. It's kind of hard to get your foot in, but it gets you noticed. But I come to things like this. When I saw that this tonight was happening, I emailed Andrew. I'm like, hey, so how do I get in on that? He hadn't even started asking for panelists yet. And I'm like, hey, Andrew, what's up, buddy pal? Because I want to get out like this. Exactly. I got paid in pizza. It was tasty. So, but another way I like to get the word out is also through game developer communities, especially in the indie game space, because I'm an indie game podcast, so I want to work with indie games. So what I really hope to do is be able to cover some of, like, especially the local games when they come out. And so this is one of the points I wanted to make earlier, which hasn't been able to tie in yet, but this is the best one it ties into. When your game's about to come out in like the next month, I'd love to hear from you, because my audience doesn't really care until they can actually buy your game. And a month ahead of time gives us time to plan. Maybe you can come on my show on Sunday nights at 8. I know Sunday nights is a bad time to do PR, but that's when I'm here. And we can talk about your game and promote it. Ninrak over here, he's been working on a game. I don't say hello to him. That is not my greeting. Every time I talk to him, my greeting is, your game out yet? Because I would love to cover his game. I just know that my audience is going to forget about it if I interview him today, and it's not going to come out for another year or 2 or 3. So I would, but the great thing about interviewing indie game devs is that you guys also promote me. And so your audience comes to me and maybe they like what I'm doing and they add me into the rotation. And so that's another part of the hustle is I promote you, you promote me back, which is why I'm here begging when your game comes out. Please, hi, I got business cards and I got flyers.
I want to kind of expand on that. Just the fact that if you have a game and it's about to come out, have a social media page for that game. That sounds redundant, and I don't know if really any of us have really gone into detail about that. But having so many people pay attention to social media, so many people pay attention to social media. So many people just use, like, everyone uses the internet. Everyone does. Even people that don't like you. Trust me, I've had it. I've had people make accounts just be like, you suck. I'm like, why? They're like, I don't like you. I'm like, well, thanks for the feedback, I guess. So everyone will always use it. It doesn't matter what it is. Everyone at some point is going to be able to see what it is that you do. If you have a game that's about to be released, have a social media page for that game. Be sure that you guys are tweeting on it, sharing your progress, showing off your art, and that will help get the word out for sure. And people, as weird as it sounds, people on the internet are pretty fickle. So it's going to be like, if they see a pretty picture, they'll be like, oh, pretty picture. I'm going to retweet this, or I'm going to like it, or I'm going to comment on it, or whatever the case may be, because I've seen it happen. And so you need to be able to have that social media presence as well and constantly update it. Because when games don't get updated in social media, or if you don't hear about it for about 2 weeks, I've seen games die before the game even came out. Like, people just forget that it was about to come out.
That piggybacks on what you were saying about use your social media channels for specific purposes. Doubly so if this is my Twitter feed for my game. You might end up with 5 games down the road. And if you're cross-pollinating, nothing turns me off worse on Twitter than, like, I'm going to check on the news of this thing that I want to know about. I don't care about your dog.
Right.
If you care about your dog, go find your personal Twitter.
Yeah, participate in Screenshot Saturday.
Yeah.
That's a hashtag on Twitter. Hashtag Screenshot Saturday. Every Saturday, put a new screenshot from your game. Because I've also heard this, because even though I said don't talk to me until a month before, which is true, the best time to start marketing your game is when you are ready to announce it. The second best time is right now. Don't talk to me until you're about to release in a month, but start the marketing years in advance and participate in Screenshot Saturday. That way you're doing stuff every week and post a new screenshot, and that's how you can build up your game. And then talk to me when we can start clicking the button to send you money.
And if you don't know how to make a GIF or GIF, whatever you want to call it,
GIF. It's
figure
GIF.
it out.
Yes.
It's GIF.
You can make a GIF of this whole panel right now.
It's a GIF.
All right, we're at 8 o'clock. Before I throw out my last question to the panel, any questions from the audience or from chat? Okay, 2 questions, starting here in front.
Okay, first, and I want to know what you think about, like, when choosing a channel name. Like, I'm sure we all have our embarrassing usernames from childhood. We're like, misspelled, calling myself out here. I can spell video game right.
Okay, so the name of my podcast, get this.
Big reveal.
It's called The Bobby Blackwolf Show. Stupidest name ever for a video game podcast, but I've been doing it for 700 weeks now. I can't change it anymore. So that was kind of dumb. But make it, if you're going to choose like a channel name, make it something that kind of represent, like for podcast names, you want it to sound like it's a video gaming podcast. Nobody's going to find my podcast if they're looking for video games.
Yeah.
So
So why Welcome to the Wall?
I think for us when we started out, we were all first time generation college students within our families. So we used to tell ourselves like, man, if somebody was a fly on the wall, they'll pick up some game, you know. So obviously, fly on the wall was taken. So we pretty much said, welcome to the wall. Pretty much was calling everybody flies.
Nice.
But to us, that meant something. You know, that had a meaning. If I was to do it all over again, I probably would choose a name, but because I'm tied to it. But if I would have, I probably would have did something more closer to what I do now. Maybe use key terms or phrases that maybe production or community or something like that.
Buzzwords.
Those buzzwords that it's easy to find people. If I made my podcast Red Nose, you're not gonna be like, what is a red nose, right? But if I say something like community podcast, people be like, oh, he's for the community, So things in that nature. I personally like my name because it feels like a brand. But yeah, that's pretty much how we came up with our name.
So Phon, Stephon.
It's very simple.
You took the Bobby Blackwolf
Yes,
route to name
I
it.
did, but mine was my college nickname. It was really random. I had some cringe names to like Reaper of Summons when I first started playing League 10 years ago. I've had like the Azure Comet, like the Blue Comet, and I've like talked to my friends. They're like, "Yo, those names suck." I'm like, "Oh, thanks, guys." But it's like that name came across. Phon came across. Obviously, my name is Stephon. Last 4 letters of my name. Never thought about that before. One of my college roommates randomly, I'm not even kidding. I woke up, I went to go use the bathroom. He saw me. He went, "What's up, Phon?" And I'm like, huh.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. From that moment on, that is whatever my tag has been. It has been Phon or Phon the Legend. That's always what it's been. It used to be Phon the Man. I was like, I didn't like that. So I did Phon the Legend. And from that point on, it's pretty much stuck to some of the Paladin stuff that has been done, especially from like last year. If you Google my name, Phon the Legend, you will find my Twitter first, you will find my Twitch stream, and then you will also find you'll find some Paladin stuff as well. Like the premiere video when I first came on to Paladins, you'll find that where I was looking really awkward. So that's fine.
All right, somebody here has the most uniquest name of all of us.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Ding.
my piece of advice on that. First, so the reason most unique is something either is or is not unique. I hate it when people say most unique. Uniquest is not a word. Something is or is not unique. That's why it is. But if you look us up on Twitter, it's at most uniquest. No spaces, no underscores, no nothing. If it's on Instagram, it's most uniquest. No underscores, no nothing. Be super consistent. If you've ever started a business or trademarked anything or copywritten anything, you have to do this ton of research. I almost said a really bad word.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot of research
That's a good point.
to make sure that no one else has ever used that before, especially like in your industry, what have you. Social media is pretty much the same thing. If you do a search for a hashtag and a whole bunch of people are using it, find another hashtag.
All right, staying
That's
with
good
you,
point.
most uniquest, for the last question, where can game developers
I
find
think
you?
He had a.
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Sorry.
Sorry. I
Well, this
missed
might be kind of fun. Did you ever have a particular episode or moment that went very viral? And
Oh, no.
tell me what that was and how do you try to repeat that? Because your goal, I believe, is to go viral.
I don't know if I want to answer that question.
I'll start with that one. Our most watched video on the Georgia Game Devs YouTube channel shows me crashing into the side of space station walls repeatedly, trying to get my spaceship out of the space station. And now it's called Into the Black, I believe. So yes, that is our most watched GGDA video by a couple times.
I know you're looking at me, but I don't want to answer.
Congratulations.
It happens a lot more with me because I know our social media manager for Paladins. So he's clipped me doing some really stupid stuff or stuff it is that I've said before. One of it was you can't hear the sound when you're watching the player. So when you're going over draft phase, like, why did this character pick this? Why does this character do that? The most embarrassing moment, I had to play it off. I was like, yeah, I meant to do that. And my co-caster was like, oh, thank God. Because it would have been really bad if you didn't mean to do that. Or, it would have been like more embarrassing, but also more funny if you didn't mean to do that. I was like, nah, I meant that. I didn't mean that. There was a time where a pro player was looking at the screen and he was like waving and you had to read his lips. And he was like, he was saying, "Hi, Mom, I love you." That's what he was saying. And I thought he said, "Hi, Phon, I love you." And on camera, that clip is on the Paladins Pro Twitter. On camera, I went, "Oh, I love you too, man." And he went, "What?" And I was like, yeah, he said Phon, right? No, he said he said Phon, right? And in that moment, I was like, oh, he said Mom. He was like, he said Mom, didn't he? And he was like, yeah, he said Mom. Did did you not know that? I'm like, so anyway, about the draft, by the way, that game was sick, right? So I had to play it off, and I started laughing because he was like, we're not going to go down this rabbit hole. There's like, no way. So there was that. What else have I done? I had a dab on camera because chat kept asking me to do it, and that picture is everywhere. Outdated meme, I know, but I wanted to do it. It was funny. What else? I mean, I can't really like play off of that because it's like some people are like, haha, idiot, or some people are just like, haha, that's actually really funny. I want to follow this guy. It depends. It's like 50-50 for me. There's a lot of moments, man. I mean, if you look on Paladins Pro, I mean, you'll see like a lot of my commentary, but you'll have some moments that are really funny. I made puns on camera before that ended up with silence. Because my co-caster didn't like puns, but I did, and I thought it was funny. And there was a time where there's a screenshot of a close-up of my face where I'm like smirking at the camera, and he's like deadpan, like, really? Like the whole time. So it's like, I mean, you have to be able to play off of that. Be like, have like a little fun with what it is that you do. Really, really love what it is that you do. You'll find a bunch of moments. Please don't look them up, but you'll find some.
Bobby, you never had weird interviews at conventions that got picked up everywhere, did you?
Well, so I'm lucky enough to, it's a podcast and I edit things. So on the live stream and stuff that I've, because it was live internet radio, you couldn't clip any of that. And thankfully, I haven't had anything go wrong since we moved over to Twitch where people could clip it. But nothing's really gone wrong when I've been filming at a convention. One time, like somebody decided they were going to run all in front of my camera while I was interviewing, but then I just didn't use the interview, so it never went viral or anything because I pre-record everything and then I play them later. But the one interview I got that actually did get traction for good reasons, since I know it's not the fun answer, but the one interview was when you remember there was a controversy with Borderlands 2. And Borderlands 2, they released a DLC called The Necromancer. Mm-hmm. And the designer for that was speaking at a European conference, said, yes, it's kind of like girlfriend mode. Okay, because it was to make it easier for people who can't really aim in first-person shooters and stuff, and like it allows the bullets to bounce off walls and hit the enemy and stuff like that. And to me, I'm like, this is awesome because I play on easy mode. So I started calling it Bobby Blackwolf Forever mode because it's called Best Friends Forever Skill Tree was the actual skill tree. Yeah. But at Dragon Con that year, Gearbox sent 2 representatives. One was my former guildmaster in EverQuest, who's now one of the creative directors at Gearbox, and the other was that designer that made that comment that got picked up by Eurogamer. And so I asked, and my friend who's the creative director called back to Gearbox PR. I was literally the first person to ask to interview him after all that came out, and they granted the interview. So I got to ask Jonathan Hemingway, who was the designer who said it, why did you say it? What did you mean by that? How has your life been since that's happened? And he was very forthcoming. He was setting the record straight. And so that's the interview that got put all over Reddit and stuff like that. So that's the one time I was able to go viral, but it was for a real thing and not because something messed up, because I edit all the mess ups out so you don't see it.
Anything good down on your ends?
Oh, no viral for me, just regular posts. I have regular videos. I've only seen increases when we add tags, and when we post videos the right way, we've seen increases. Like, tags are very important. That's how you get discovered on YouTube and platforms like that. Being consistent when your fan base kind of knows what you want or what to expect, that's the only time. But as far as like some crazy thing where I went viral, 0. So that's just for me.
Yeah. So what you're hearing here is there's 2 kinds of viral. There's the 30-second silly clip. Yes. You cannot bottle that lightning. Do not try.
No, you cannot.
The serious stuff, that happens when it happens, man.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's all I can tell you. I think that's.
But I'm amused at which of your videos are the most popular ones.
Which ones are you thinking of?
The heavily technical videos where you go into in-depth discussions on microphones and specific.
I still get comments on some of those videos that he's talking about 3 years, 4 years on, which if you're not into like camera tech is going to bore you to tears. But yeah, people, if you hit that one sweet spot that I spent 5 hours Googling this stupid thing that I could not figure out, I finally figured out. Here's how you do it. You might get some longevity out of that.
All right, last question for everybody. Game developers want to work with you. How do they find you?
Most uniquest. Everywhere.
Yes. Welcome to the Wall podcast. I think it should be everywhere, you know.
So I am so Bobby Blackwolf on Twitter and, and on Facebook. That was a dry cough. It's okay.
Not how we feel about Twitter.
Yeah, no, Twitter, and we have a Discord server. So I am with the Voice of Geeks Network. This is kind of important to say, like where you can actually see what I do. Is I record my podcast live on video Sunday nights at 8 o'clock for 1 hour at the Voice of Geeks Network Twitch channel. So that's twitch.tv/VOG Network, VOG Network. I have flyers that have that. So you can contact me at bobby@vognetwork.com or on Twitter. I've got an email address on my Twitter profile. Any content creator that you want to work with should have their email address somehow in their Twitter profile.
Mhm.
So if you find them in Twitter, so I've got like biz@bobbyblackwolf.com, and I spill it out so the spam bots can't get it. But you understand how to get it to it, even if you see the word @ and it's not the @ symbol. So that's how you get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you within a month. So when your game comes out, we can plan how to promote you, and then you can promote me, and we're all happy together.
Mine is twitch.tv/Phon the Legend and @Phon the Legend on Twitter. I don't have any business cards, but if you are curious, you're more than welcome to come up to me and ask me, after this, or if you want me to type out my name in your phone or write it down or anything like that. I'm 100% okay with that. I talk a lot, and I talk for a living mostly. So, I completely understand if you guys might be a little bit shy about that, but you guys are more than welcome to come up to me and ask that. That's where you guys can find me. As for working with game devs, I love video games. I'm sure that could be said about a lot of us here, but I've loved it enough to try and make it a super big part of how I live, right? And so, if you guys have a game, I'm going to steal what he said. Talk to me in like about a month before it gets released. I really, really love video games. I love indie games. Indie games are so cool. I feel like so much of the market has been so focused, and I know because I'm a part of it. So much of the market, even though Hi-Rez is not like a AAA company, it is a pretty well-off company. It focuses so much on the AAA aspect of things. A lot of the Game Informer or a lot of these reporters are interviewing people like Ed Boon. They're people who made the person who made Mortal Kombat. Like they're interviewing a lot of these people that AAA, but the indie devs, because all of them didn't start off as AAA, right? They all started off as indie devs at some point, or they've done something that they didn't think would evolve into a game development career. So I love indie games more than anything because there's so much potential in that, and when you catch that lightning in a bottle, it becomes so important. So please talk to me if you guys have it, only if it's soon to be released. Because please talk to me because I would love that.
And quick, just to piggyback on that, because I am somebody who has interviewed has interviewed AAA developers. Like especially like at E3, I get no different answers from AAA developers than IGN or Polygon or Kotaku. We all get the same answers, and if I ask a question that's not one of those, they're like, we can't comment on that at that time. But you don't get to give all those answers all the time, so it's more exclusive and you're a little more open, and that's why I love talking with you guys more than the AAA developers.
You guys got to be open about that stuff. That is absolutely amazing. You know how many things I can't talk about with Paladins tonight, but I know what it is that's about to happen. They released like a God trailer recently. Everybody's like, "Oh, I wonder who that is." I'm like, "Yeah, guys, I wonder who that is," right? Because it's like a mystery thing. So yeah, please be open about that. You love your game, you need to talk about it, and you can give answers that AAA companies don't have the luxury of being able to do. I would love to do it, but I know I would get in big trouble if I just started leaking stuff. So that's how it is.
But even EA was once an indie dev, and so answer questions now before you turn into EA.
Exactly.
Yep.
And of course, we're Georgia Game Devs. You can find us on ggda.org. And my next Kickstarter for the Fading Suns role-playing game 4th edition will kick off March 24th. So look for that on Kickstarter, March 24th. And thank you all for joining us. Thanks especially to our panel, Phon, Bobby Blackwolf, Aamir, and most uniquest, Matt Franklin. And thanks to all of you for joining us here. Join us on the stream. And remember, Georgia Stream Network is how we'll be getting in touch with everybody. Good night, all.